So I've recently been experimenting with a couple of different things as a result of this project I'm working on. And I thought to myself, why not just make like a little mini series just to kind of show and then might as well since I'm posting it later on. So with this project I need to record different instruments which would be acoustic drums as well as guitars through an amp. There are many different ways that you can approach this, and I obtained two of these microphones, which are most of us know these Shure SM57s, which are pretty industry standard. Um, Now I thought to myself, I know in studios, um, different audio engineers will use like a various amount of microphones, and knowing that the SM57 works well with in some cases, such as miking a snare drum or miking a guitar cabinet up close, how far can it go into recording a full song? So this series, the SM57 series that I'm doing, is going to kind of experiment with that to see how much sound I can truly obtain from these microphones. How much of a full song can I make? And I'm limiting myself to using these two microphones, even though I have this little Scarlett microphone here in my inventory, to just to see how much, when you're limited as an audio engineer, how much can you truly produce? With that being said, in this series, there's a lot of topics that are sort of subjective. There are many different approaches to how people will do things or different techniques, just to say the least. I'm nowhere near professional. This is all very new to me. And I'm just kind of learning along the way. I have some knowledge of some things with recording. I have different types of musical knowledge, and I've met different people over the years that have contributed to this knowledge. But I'm very far from knowing like what to do with these different methods. So if there's any constructive criticism or feedback that you would like to give me in order to improve these methods or just add to my knowledge base, I would greatly appreciate it. So this SM57 series of mine will have three kind of episodes, or just three parts if you want to call it that. The first will be the introduction, which is this video, where I'm just going to show around the little room I have. Is it acoustically treated? And how am I going to go about doing like room mics and stuff like that? Um, the second video will be on recording guitars and guitars only, and that will be using physical amps as well as virtual amp sims. The third video will be on recording drums, so using this drum kit and going through the different methods you can take with utilizing only two mics. And it gets pretty interesting with using the SM57, seeing how much they can actually accomplish with acoustic drums. So be sure to view those videos if you would like to see the experiments I take on with recording guitars and drums. But for now, I'm just going to take you around the room and show you what physical equipment I have and kind of how I'm going to run things through the next two videos. Here's what I guess you could say the control room of my little home studio. The interface I'm running is the Scarlett 2i2, so I use this for any of the DI inputs I need with any instruments, and also the two XLR inputs for my microphones. Now we're at the little guitar station I have here. So this will be including electric guitar or electric bass in my recordings. This is the bass combo amp I'm running. It's an Ashdown RM500 with a 5-band EQ, and I'll be running a few other things through here, which you'll see in the future. This is the Orange Crush practice amp, which I will use rarely because it is kind of harsh, but we'll see in the experiments how that goes. These are the physical multi-effects pedals I will be running. The one on the right I will be using for bass, which is the Boss Zoom pedal. And then the one on the left will be the Digitech, which I will be using for any special guitar effects that won't be processed through the DAW. Lastly, we come to the drum set. So this is an old Tama kit that I obtained. I think it's from either the 70s or 80s. And recently I put new heads on it. The toms are Evans heads, and then as well as the kick, it's an Onyx EMAD, and then the snare is running a Remo. I think it's a Power Stroke. And these are all tuned just to sound good. So it might flow well with the project and it might not. So before ending this introduction video and diving into the two other videos, It's important to know how the SM57 works and the problems that can rise with doing a project like this. So, looking at the SM57, it is a cardioid polar pattern, which means that it sucks in all the sound from here and rejects all the sound from the back. Now, that's good when you have a sound source where you want to block out everything from the back, such as a snare drum, as I've said before, or close to a guitar cabinet. As you increase the distance, so say the snare drum is right here recording my hand. If it's right here, it's going to capture right here. As we go further out, the little triangle, or just picture a triangle in front of this, it's going to kind of increase as you capture more area that you're recording. So that's good in this project, as I will be using them as an overhead above the drum kit. But what that does is it kind of limits how much you do want to capture of, say, the drum kit, or if you're doing room mics for a guitar cabinet. So those are just some little issues. Of course, there's more that can arise, but it's important to know how this microphone captures sound. The other thing is the frequency response of the SM57. So looking right here on the graphic, we have a higher frequency response towards the higher end, the high end shelf of the EQ. The low end has an increasing curve. So what does that mean? This microphone is not the best at capturing deep low end stuff. In this case, the bass drum and the bass cabinet are stuff we want to hear more of the low end in the mix. So to compensate for that in post processing, we're going to need to use some extra boost on the low end with the EQ. That's not to say that the SM57 is bad at capturing low end. In my experimentation that I've done already with the kick drum, it captures the punch really well. But we still need those sub frequencies in order to have a good low end in the mix. So with all that in mind, that brings this introduction to an end. In the next few videos, I'll be explaining more in depth of how the microphone captures what I'm trying to capture. So that will be with like the guitar cabinet or the drums, positioning, and all that sort of stuff. This introduction video was just to kind of give a basis and base knowledge of what's going to happen in the next two videos. So be sure to view those videos if you would like to see how this goes into application, and kind of use it to spark your mind on what you can truly experiment with. I would rather you use this as like a way to kind of get creative with your recording techniques, rather than putting what I do into practice, because some of this stuff is definitely not practical to say, but it's more just like what is this microphone capable of. So be sure to stay tuned, and I'll see you in the next one.